An article reveals two former 20 goal scorers that Montreal could target in free agency, how Montreal wants to become a playoff team potentially next year, and how these guys can help. We got to get into all of this, plus Kent Hughes' plans and Eric Engel's recent article. We also have to get into Owen Protz, Habs' recent draft pick, and some of the amazing quotes he has, and how he would be a perfect fit coming up in the future on this Habs blue line. You're not going to want to miss this episode of Habs Digest. And Jesse, we got to get straight into Owen Protz. He is absolutely special. Now, I know if you guys are interested in the free agent signing stuff, you can skip ahead, but please stick around for this, though. Owen Protz is amazing. You guys may not know, he was I believe a third-round draft pick this year, Jesse, but my gosh, I love everything about him. Just look at some of these quotes. Not going to beat around the bush here. I wouldn't say I model my game after Stevens, but I used to watch a lot of Scott Stevens highlights, some pretty big hits. Kronwall was always a big guy growing up, being Kronwalled. Hopefully, if I get into the league, I'll get a "here comes Protz." And he didn't only say that. Check this out. I started eating 6 meals a day when I was in daycare. I've never had trouble gaining weight. I like everything in the gym. I train 6 times a week. I just do everything that my coach asks of me. Everything about this guy is amazing, Jesse. I love everything he's saying. This kind of thing is, I feel like it's not that common, especially for Habs draft picks, but that personality, that like boldness, this clearly got the attention of the Habs brass. Like, it's something they're looking for, and I absolutely love everything he's had to say.
He's a monster, eating 6 times a week like that, right? But he's also been called a bully out on the ice, which I gotta say, I'm okay with, right? And you can imagine why, learning from the greats, Scott Stevens, Cromwell as well, guys that, have really won at the NHL level, and bringing back those hip checks, right? We're hearing, kind of at the development camp, people were keeping their head on a swivel, right? They didn't want to kind of get run over. And apparently, he kind of grew up watching tape from the 50s, 60s, old school hockey at the cottage all the time. His parents need to take his VHS tapes from him because he was just kind of soaking in all the time. So no big surprise of why he plays the way that he does, right? We know that can be really beneficial in that playoff kind of shutdown type of role. But Josh, we know that he doesn't want to be just known as that. Like, he does skate pretty good for being such a big hitter as well. Like, this is why the Habs picked him. But then he also wants to be a puck mover, right? So he's got some time to develop. He's going to be going back to the OHL. But these are the things he's going to be working on his game. But, that's a guy that, can definitely intimidate some of the opposition.
Yeah, and that's actually a really good point, too. When you look at the Habs' defensive makeup, especially for the future, like, you have Jack-Eye, who I think a lot of people project as a guy that's going to be in that Habs, at least one of the 3 pairings for many years to come. But a guy like Protz is really not that present, right? Just a guy who's a pure big hitter. While Jack-Eye definitely does that, he has some other aspects to his game too. But you look at the offensive talent they have. Matheson, whether he stays past his contract or not, who knows? But Lane Hudson, someone like an Adam Engstrom, someone like a Justin Barron, a Logan Mailloux. These guys are all offensively oriented, and Reinbacher is, I guess, a bit of both. But like those guys I just mentioned, so many offensive guys, hardly any of these shut down, just like hit you kind of guys. And he has what I like to call, I've said this before with Jack-Eye, but I call it anti-gravity, right? You have gravity, which means like something like a Connor McDavid, everyone flocks to you. But anti-gravity, everyone's going to want to stay the heck away from Owen Protz. And I feel like it's not really that there on the Habs blue line for the future. So Jesse, when you're looking at him, like, fit plays a big role in the draft a bit, but when you're a prospect coming up, if you fit into a team, your likelihood of playing for them is much higher. So when you see these kind of all these offensive guys and you see a guy like Protz, do you see a world where he could like really take advantage? I'm not talking about next year. I'm not talking about even 2-3 years down the line. You got to watch these guys develop. He's not going to be an NHLer overnight. But what I'm saying is I think with the way the Habs have built out, it wouldn't be crazy to see this guy see his opportunity to fit into the lineup and take it.
And that's what makes like a player like Lane Hutchin potentially so good, right? Is only if they have kind of that big defensive guy to kind of back them up, that's concentrating on that side of the end of holding it down to kind of give them, the flexibility to really be able to flex those offensive muscles. I would say you almost need it, right? And that's why Jack-Eye still is so valuable on this team. And the Habs really know it, right? Like, we got a lot of offense from our back end, but I'd agree absolutely that that's almost what makes a player like Owen Protz that much more valuable, right? Is again, having that balance. That's what he brings to this team. So he's going to have time just to get bigger, eat more of those meals, keep living in the gym like he's doing, and be ready for when his time comes at the NHL level.
Oh, I can't wait for this big body Owen Protz. Let us know your thoughts about these quotes down below. I absolutely love everything that he has said. In terms of pure, like, meme value. Like, I know Demidov's had some great quotes. Michael Hage is a great story, but Protz, he just knows how to speak, man. I love everything that's come out of his mouth. So really, really great stuff. But we're going to move on to this other thing, Jesse. And look, these names could make a lot of sense. They could not make a lot of sense depending on your opinion, but I think we're going to make a decent case that this could very well work. And I wanted to bring up some quotes from Eric Engel's recent article a few days ago. It was an article mostly about Slav, but also about some potential for the Habs moving forward. And he highlighted how Tarasenko just signed this 2-year deal, and how that only leaves a couple of other even decently high goal scorers on the market, and Daniel Sprong and Tyler Johnson at 18 and 17 goals apiece. They're the highest guys left, and he said, I'm not saying they won't try to sign either player, but I don't think I necessarily bet my life savings on it. Fair enough, but he did go on to say that Kent Hughes, like, he wants to see what develops between now and training camp, and it's a long summer, but, you know, something's likely to shake loose, because he said he thinks he wants to give the Canadians a boost in their quest to be in the playoff mix. And when you're talking about a guy like Sprong or Johnson, Jesse, like, these guys, I mean, Tyler Johnson had a bad rap for his bad contract he had, but he's not that bad. I mean, he's a winner. He won twice with Tampa Bay. He had a 29-goal season, and he had 17 goals with the Blackhawks last year. And a guy like Sprong, even though he looks like he's 40, he's only 27, right? He's not that old. From Amsterdam, really cool too. 18 goals in 76 games last year, 21 and 66 the year before. As a stopgap before Demidov gets to the Habs, like, next year after, like, I don't mind this at all. Like, you slot a guy, like, no, Sprong is not a traditional top 6 player, but if Hughes, like, if the right opportunity doesn't come along, and I know Hughes is only going to make a trade if he feels it's the right opportunity, if that doesn't come along, I don't mind this at all. I don't mind the idea of going out and getting a guy who could score 15, 20 goals, like, especially with the Habs' lack of goal scoring last year. I don't know. I feel like there's maybe more of a case for this than some people might think.
Yeah, Kent is patiently waiting, right? And this is a very fair take that's being made in this article. Is, again, we know that Demidov is coming, but what do we do in that kind of time and in between? Like, Kent Hughes has said he wants to be in the mix. We know we need goal scoring to kind of get there, right? But at the same time, we want that shorter term type of deal, because as Jeff Gordon says as well, it's like he doesn't want to block those spots long term, right? But I feel like besides the Demidov, there's definitely a spot on this lineup for a vet. It just feels for me that if we're bringing a vet into our top 6, obviously needs to be like a bona fide goal scorer. I know we lost a lot of 1-goal games last year, so bringing in somebody like Daniel Sprong, who scored 39 goals over his last 2 years, right, even though it's not the ideal fit, is beneficial to this team in the interim. I think, Kent, he doesn't like to settle for second best, so he's going to be going for the trades first to see if that works to bring something in the top 6. I think that he's not necessarily going for the home run this summer, but he's going to do whatever is in his possibility right now to help this team. If it will be better for the longer term of this team, he'll do that even this summer, right? If it makes sense for the team. He wants to go for the maximum impact that he can, just not sacrificing the longer term, right? So, I mean, you got to be open to these type of scenarios. Probably more is kind of like a fallback option, definitely. But at the same time, it's like you need to be looking to bring in players to help kind of reward your team for that good play. Like, they've gotten better, they're being patient with you, but you want to, that sweet spot where you want to reward them on the ice, right? And kind of start building a little bit more of that winning culture, even not necessarily if it makes you in a playoff spot, just being much more in the mix can do wonders for your team, right? So adding a player like Sprong, like Tyler Johnson, who's won at every level that he's played at, there's some benefits. While not being ideal, could definitely add some things to this team. But I think Kent, him, he's going for that top 6. He's going for that trade.
I mean, he tried to get Marchessault, but the reason they didn't sign him is because they didn't come to terms on the length of the deal, right? And Marchessault wanted something longer. The Habs didn't, and they said no. And a guy like Sprong, he's 27. Like, maybe he'll command a 2 or 3 year deal. I know Engels kind of speculates you're talking just under $4 million per year. He's just coming off a 1-year, $2 million deal, but with the cap going up, you can imagine he'll ask for more. I don't think it's crazy as a 1-year deal. Like, I don't see Sprong as the kind of guy you sign for multiple years. Like, I know he's still not that old, but like, again, you have so much talent coming up in the next couple of years. I feel like that kind of commitment's just not a good idea. I know you have Armia coming off the books. I know RHP and Pezzetta, long term, will they still be those kind of guys? I like their energy a lot, so maybe they could find a spot, but To bring in a guy as a stopgap, to give you those goals, to instill a winning culture in a team is so important too. The guys want to win. They don't want to be a bottom feeder again, and adding a 20-goal scorer is never a bad idea if you can get them on a good deal. But I agree. I think a trade's more likely. You can move out some of the pieces that's already in this log jam of forwards the Habs have, and maybe you could get something even better back. But what do you guys think? Let us know down below. Are we crazy for thinking this could be a good fit, or do you think are you on the same page as us in saying that Kent Hughes is almost certainly going to go for a trade over signing one of these two guys? That'll do it for this episode of Habs Digest. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for all your support. I'm Josh Goss, my co-host Jesse Poirier. We'll catch you in the next one.